In the high-pressure world of Formula One, with danger literally around every corner, some drivers can lose sight of team goals and focus on their own individual interests. All this means that oftentimes drivers can end up completely destroying the teams they're actually employed to drive for. But there are some ways to stop this. Today we're discussing how to prevent F1 drivers from destroying a team, so don't go anywhere. First up, let's discuss one of the biggest reasons a driver might destroy a team. One of the leading reasons why some drivers end up completely destroying a team is that they simply don't get along with their teammates, and will do everything in their power for them to not win a race, or even a title. This, of course, is to the complete detriment of the team they're driving for, and was no more apparent than in the Lewis Hamilton-Nico Rosberg rivalry that developed during the pair's stint at Mercedes. The duo were once tight as childhood friends, but as they both competed for the sport's top prize between 2013 and 2016, their relationship became strained. So much so that they were both threatened with suspension at one point, which did absolutely nothing for their team. Hamilton also had another vicious rivalry with McLaren teammate Fernando Alonso, who saw the young upstart as a rival to his ambitions of winning a second title. But of course, this is a pretty common situation as big egos mix on the grid, and one of the most notorious teammate feuds was that of Alain Prost and the late great Ayrton Senna. The pair raced for McLaren in the late 80s, and one incident in particular at Suzuka, where Senna won his first title at the expense of Prost, was the catalyst for a lifelong rivalry, which only led up with Prost's retirement in 1993. The pair did make up shortly before Senna's tragic death, however. Is it all down to the drivers then? Let's discuss. Well, it's not always the fault of the driver, to be honest. Of course, the driver is the biggest and most prominent part of the team and can easily destroy it. But in some cases, the team itself can be a cause of its own downfall. If they don't employ the right people with the right attitudes behind the scenes, then that is often a recipe for disaster. There have been plenty of occasions throughout F1's rich history where engineers and mechanics have argued amongst themselves as to whose car they work on. Of course, everyone wants to be involved with the champion, or the #1 driver, and mechanics and engineers are no different. They all want to work on the winning car and with the winning driver, which can be detrimental to the second driver, not only for the race ahead, but for his career in general. This, of course, can cause friction for the team if the second driver has any sort of designs on a successful racing career, and this was the case at McLaren when the aforementioned Hamilton and Alonso were teammates. Alonso was the favorite for the title, which meant the team all wanted to focus on his car, neglecting Hamilton as they didn't expect much from him. But the Brit performed as well as, if not better than Alonso in some races, proving that sometimes it is the fault of the team. So how can teams combat these issues? Well, so far this season, there haven't really been any issues of teammates getting in each other's way. As in most teams, there's a clear 1-2 where the second driver knows he isn't the main man. Take Red Bull, for example. As the champion, Max Verstappen is not going to sit back and allow his teammate Sergio Perez to be the main man, and Perez knows as much and is happy with his place in the team. And this is one example of how a team can function well, when each team member clearly knows their role, with both men occupying 2 of the top 3 places. And it is this communication that is key. Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz seem to have a similar relationship because their teams appear to be talking through their strategies and not arguing between each other. And one former McLaren mechanic, Marc Priestley, has echoed these ideas on his recent podcast, Pit Lane Life Lessons, when he was discussing the battle between teammates Hamilton and Alonso, saying, "McLaren could have avoided a lot of fighting by just speaking out how things were, instead of assuming everyone knew how things were." This is, of course, a simple solution, and questions why the team were willing to plow millions into their drivers and cars without having a structured understanding between the two, and when put like this, comes across as a little unprofessional. News of a fine for Williams now. Stay tuned. British team Williams have been hit with a fine of £20,000 for breaching F1's strict cost cap regulations. The team, who haven't had a driver's or constructor's title since 1997, failed to submit its accounts before the 31st of March deadline, but it has been reported that the FIA had been informed ahead of the missed deadline that the team had missed the cap. It was created to limit how much a team could spend during the season, and this season has been reduced from £114 million to £101 million. But Williams were fined thanks to committing a procedural breach, but have argued that the cap is too restrictive. Their argument suggests that thanks to rising global prices for, well, everything, the cost cap should be increased to reflect this. It is thought that the cap will again decrease next season, which is almost certainly set to bring in more issues along with it. Christian Horner, team principal over at Red Bull, has even suggested that if teams aren't granted a reprieve, the sport's governing body runs the risk of teams pulling out of some races this this season. Some people have blamed the war in Ukraine, with Toto Wolff saying, "Having a raging war in the Ukraine and the consequences it had on energy prices is not something that could be foreseen, and there needs to be some sort of compromise between the teams who are against an inflationary adjustment and those who are for it." Where do you guys stand on this? George Russell is joining us now. Ahead of the Azerbaijan race this weekend, Russell has been giving his opinions on the season so far, and the British Mercedes driver, who is well placed in the F1 driver standings in 4th position, has admitted that he had expected to have actually won a race by now. Russell has surprised some fans this season, outpointing teammate Lewis Hamilton so far. But whilst he has admitted he's pleased with his 7 top 5 finishes in a row, he said, "I think if you told me prior to the season that we'd be 7 races in and I wouldn't have a victory to my name, I would have definitely been a little bit disappointed with that. But I think given the pace of the car and given where we've been as a team, I've been reasonably pleased with how I've performed. I think the results have been maximized." Of course, it's good to have high expectations, and he seems to have the correct mentality, but he's still a young driver, so shouldn't be too disheartened with not having a win so far, as it will almost certainly come at some stage. He also suggested that there aren't many areas where the team could have performed better, and has said they just need to keep pushing as a team and also personally. And going into Baku this weekend, he said, "We've learned a lot and can put that to good use in the coming weeks to take another step forward." And finally, a word on Hamilton's ongoing jewelry row. Lewis Hamilton has incurred the wrath of F1 bosses recently, as he has refused to stop wearing jewelry whilst racing. The FIA have recently reinforced their rules, which has angered the Englishman for some reason, and it has recently even been suggested that the English driver might be banned from his home race at Silverstone this year if he does not abide to the jewelry rules. Of course, Hamilton has been one of the most vocal critics of the jewelry rule and can regularly be seen sporting expensive watches, earrings, and even a nose stud, which has led many to question why he needs these items whilst racing. He was also seen wearing these items during the Miami press conference recently, which will have done nothing to smooth over his relationship with F1 bosses. The FIA later backed off, allowing him to wear the nose stud, which just highlights how Hamilton sees himself and suggests he believes the rules don't actually apply to him, which will probably only see the FIA double down on their stance. Hamilton would need to undergo surgery to remove the stud, which absolutely isn't the FIA's problem. If they allow Hamilton to race while breaking rules, it sets a dangerous precedent, and if he doesn't meet the June 30th deadline, he runs the risk of missing the British GP on July 3rd. As always, thanks for joining us today, and remember to swing by again next time for some more fun bits and pieces. Bye guys!